What's up, bitches? I am here to do my 200 video, everyone. And I'm about to review an interesting movie that's already 60th years old. Now, how's that a great opening or what? Anyways, I'm going to review a movie called Psycho. And I'll get to review those other kids' movies another time. But for now, I'm going to talk about a good old classic horror film. That's been around since the 1960s. It celebrated its 16th anniversary, and I did not click on that. And that I'm using the bloody PS3 control. Oh, that's a little bit hacky and a bit broken. I'm here to finally review a scary movie. Fortunately, I don't have that movie Killer Clowns from Outer Space. But this is the first time I'm going to review a pretty scary film that's been around for many centuries. So let's go ahead and check it out. I mean, this movie's already been reviewed by countless ages of people on YouTube since the beginning of time itself, and the button's not working. This is what I get when I get a cheap control that doesn't work so well. Already 2 minutes in, and I haven't talked about the full movie yet. And I pressed the start button. God, this sucks. Yep, the good old classic black and white, or on this tablet shows a little bit bluish? Greenish? Yeah, whatever. Don't care. Basically, the story's about Marianne Cravine, who works as a writer of every age story and hangs out with amazing man. And I'm not gonna get used to getting controls of this one, aren't I?
What do I do with my free afternoon?
Those of you already watched this movie before, when you were younger or in your age of 20s. The basic story is about our antagonist. It's that she did commit a crime of stealing things that don't belong to her after making out with teen ladies. Man.
I never carry more than I can afford to lose.
Been staying up late at night.
I declare. I don't. That's how I get to keep it.
Tom, cash transaction of this size is most irregular.
The basic story is just about her getting respective of all money that's been stolen. Wants to take a huge trip without cops noticing a thing in a basic motel. To not make this review go on even longer, I kind of like how the story turns out pretty well to be the most frightening film of all time. And basic voices in her head and her mind that she has the moment of screen time. But she does have a granddaughter named
Hold it there.
Nina Ravine. She tries to make sure she keeps her mouth shut and not explain too much about her history. And she just basically nice lady that wants to, shall we say, have respective rituary. she finds a motel and meets the main character,
Hangers in the closet and
Norman
stationery
Bates, who's also the second main antagonist of the story.
Just outside of Fairvale.
Am I that close to Fairvale?
15 miles. I get your bags.
When I watched this movie before, it was always hard to tell that he's starts out being a nice person, and we could not even tell if he did commit the murderer or his mother did. The movie does not explain much, but you hear that
Well,
classic music
soft and
by
there's
Alfred
hangers in the closet and
Hitchcock.
stationery with Bates Motel printed on it in case you want to make
That's his
your friends
name, by
back
the
home
way.
feel envious. And over there.
The bathroom.
I'm playing a Blu-ray of this movie, by the way.
If you want anything, just tap on the wall. I'll be in the office.
Thank you, Mr.
He starts out being kind-hearted to the main lady, and having lots of visitors come to his place, and I did it again. I'm not gonna get used to controls of this thing. I really don't got much else to say. That this is basically the entire film. I did remember watching that classic death scene. And
They cluck their thick tongues and shake their heads and
there's also this scene that he explains about his mother taking good care of her, and making sure she doesn't end up at the nut house where the other old people are at, since he's a good son
I'm not hungry, go ahead.
to her, and he has lots of collections of birds around him.
This is when they're stuffed. You know, foxes and chimps. Some people even
Which
stuff
makes
dogs
this
and
scene a
cats.
little bit
Oh, I can't do that.
uncomfortably
I think only birds
creepier.
look well stuffed because they're kind of passive to begin with.
It's a strange hobby. Curious.
Uncommon to.
And the word for it, redecorative to him. I'm gonna get used to these kind of controls, aren't I?
Ovens and grounds and little errands. You've never had an empty moment in your entire life, have you?
Only my share.
Where are you going? I didn't mean to pry.
I'm looking for a private island.
Yep, that's her main goal, to find a private island, and so the heat will cool off, unfortunately.
She had to raise me all by herself up to my father died.
She won't be having that soon.
She didn't have to go to work or anything like that. He left her a little money. Anyway, a few years ago, Mother met this man, and he talked her into building this motel. He could have talked her into anything. And when he died too, it was just too great a shock for her. And the way he died. I guess it's nothing to talk about while you're eating. Anyway, it was just too great a loss for her. She had nothing left.
Except you.
A son is a poor substitute for a lover.
Why don't you go?
Yeah, to be truthful, he really does have this connection to his mother. And most likely the hotel to keep business happening.
Not like me.
And not that he would be like a bad son to her. Just want to make sure there's like self-respect. And here he is, the classic death scene, which I skipped. That classic death scene of her being in the shower and she was a main antagonist and dies. It showed like the shadow figure, so we couldn't even tell that was him or basically his mother. It's a big, huge mystery. When I first saw this, it really terrified me. Yeah, my wits. I might have seen this one when I was younger back then, but when I saw this like nearly 2 years ago, or probably a year ago now, it really terrified me out of my wits. Especially the scene where he disposes of the car inside the big huge swamp lake. It makes it a little bit more intentionally progressive, or the other word for it. Very frightening that he feels the guilt on what happened to her. This film is really, well, very well created to be the most terrifyingest film of all time since the 1960s. I would say it's a big worthy adversary to the other classic 1950s horror franchises.
Saw Mary, talk to her.
It's kind of strange that this one did start in 1960 and then have a franchise of most likely the sequels. Also in the remake of 1990, which is not the best one. I always find this original one and the classic Psycho House to be the best progressive scene of all time with these amazing death scenes. And most agree, the most horrifying scenes of all time.
He didn't come back here.
When the music plays, it makes this scene very realistically, and word for it,
Sandy called when he had nothing but a satisfied feeling. Don't you think he'd have called if he had anything at all?
Yes, I think he would have.
progressively
Our deputy sheriff around here.
active, dimensionally frightening. You know, this movie's all classic black and white, even in gray color. It makes the scene a little bit, in the word for it, intensively. I would say this film is a worthy horror film movie of all time. In the characters, the story, the plot on who actually committed the murders. Those of you already haven't watched this movie yet, it's totally worth your time. It's pretty long. And spoilers, if those of you who haven't watched the film yet, it's basically Norman the whole time. And we see her go downstairs and see that his mother's downstairs, and we see the most terrifying scene of all time. Her dried skin skeleton corpse. Dear God, that is freaking terrifying. It's total nightmare fuel. And see Norman dressed up as his mother. It makes this scene a worthy, horrifying scene. But luckily he shows up and ends his reign of terror. And ends up in the nut house. And the film ends with him having like that connection of that car that he dumped in the swamp. That she lives to have her own original lifetime. You know, she lived at the motel for a while, in a couple of days, until she finally figured out it was him.
Has to speak the words that condemn her own son. I couldn't allow them to believe that I would commit murder. I put him away now, as I should have, years ago. He was always...
Sounds like the old saying, would not, could not feel the love,
And the ante intended
or
to tell them I killed those girls.
thinking it was
As if I could
his
do
fault,
anything
but
except just sit and stare, like
it
one of his
probably
stuffed
is
birds. They
mother.
know I can't even move a finger, and I
The
won't.
reason why
Just sit
he
here and be
does
quiet,
it
just in case they do
is for
suspect
the
me.
frail,
They're probably watching me. Well, let
wasn't the
them. Let them see
vengeance.
what kind of a person I am.
It was just the
I'm not even gonna sweat that far.
desperateness.
I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know, and they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
And that's what makes the entire film a worthy entertainment. So I give Psycho, a 1960s film, a solid 8 out of 10 of its huge successful storyline. It is that good to be terrified on what movies we watch, and imaginations in our mind are meant to be twisted, dark, gruesome, most likely nightmare fuelish terrorness, would show
Just sit here and be quiet.
how in the
Just
world
in case they do
it is.
suspect me.
It can be a dark, scary place at
They're probably
times.
watching me.
It's not always happy
Let them
endings.
see what kind of a person I am.
It's always not all intentionally nice and cheerful.
Why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
It's meant to be the most gruesome hell most experience of all time. So that's the reason why this classic film deserves a 60th anniversary of being the most horrified film that ever existed, of great cast, brilliant storyline, a realistic feel to it, most likely in a classic Psycho theme that would race down your beating heart of frightfulness, terrorness, is to your veins and brain of true who fear there is, and not from the cross of the boogeyman ends, or what's underneath your bed is what the person really is, have gone insane in the brain to being the most frightfulest, most wicked-minded person to ever existed. And you think the person starts being nice to you, but turns out to be the most signaling, most gruesome, most crooked, masterminded, evil, black-hearted, knave, savage person to ever walk this earth. So that's why this film will be the classic for the rest of time itself. I've found many new arrivals to ever watch this movie. Will they experience the most horrific, the word for it, advantage. Trying to find another word for it. Dimensionally satanic chaoticness to a person's mind. Thank you all for watching. I'm so glad I had to do this to my 200 video to review a classic horror film that'll hunt your dreams. Enjoy your nightmares. There's everyone that ever watched this film from your young history time. And I'll see you all pretty soon when I talk about killer clowns from outer space. Because they'll be dying to see you. Goodbye.